on the seriousness. And we know that Trump is laser-like responsive to the markets. He takes credit for the fact that there have been these record highs. He's now had a brutal week, by far the worst of his administration, and the first global crisis he's had to deal with as president, and he's going to take it seriously. Even the way he responded to the election question. Confident, but a lot more like, we don't know what's going to happen, anyone could win. That's not the Trump you usually see, and that, I think, is a reaction directly to simply stream of consciousness with what he's seen this week. This is a really challenging time for a guy like this to be responding in the United States.
Clearly, it's a hard virus to contain. Was he right to kind of focus the president, on the fact that there have been no deaths in the U.S., i.e. that the quality and capacity of care here is probably a lot better than anywhere else in the world?
He's certainly right insofar as the mortality in a country like the United States is going to be a lot lower than it is in China, than it is in Iran. There's a lot more ability to get data. The healthcare services and infrastructure are better. People's underlying health and conditions are a lot greater. So, sure, I don't think in the same way Ebola, when you see in the DRC, it's very different in the United States. Dr. Fauci will tell you that, right? But if you ask me, are we likely to see this pandemic have significant impact directly on the shores of the United States? The answer is yes. And when it does, the fact that we are not only a much more divided country than we were in 2008 or after 9/11, the fact that we are in an election season, which means that there are a lot of candidates that would love to be able to find all sorts of problems with any missteps Trump does or doesn't make, plus the fake news issue. We haven't had a crisis that have had that constellation of problematic variables acting as the backdrop in the context. And I think that's going to make it a lot harder to deal with here in the United States.
I think there's another problem when it comes to responding to this crisis, which is it's a global crisis,
right,
as you said. And a lot of people here have talked about some sort of need for global coordination from a healthcare response from authorities around the world. And this is not a president, and not just President Trump. Really, the trend is G0, right? Every nation out for themselves. So how does that work when it comes to fighting a global pandemic?
Well, so an interesting point, right? The one guy in the administration that's been saying Xi Jinping's doing a good job, let's not beat on him, has been President Trump. Well, you've got Peter Navarro, you've got, a number of officials that have been saying the Chinese are a problem and this is an opportunity for Americans to bring jobs, supply chain, and the rest back to the United States. But when Trump then says, let's have all of this directly through the White House and through Pence, there's no trust for him. So as a consequence, everyone is going to beat up on him and saying it's because you want to just have loyalty. It's an authoritarian China-type move. And then you add to that the fact that there is so little international trust. The ability to coordinate between the Americans and the Europeans today is dramatically lower than it was after 2008. The Americans and the Chinese today, dramatically lower than it was in 2008. And in Iran, which is by far the most problematic breakout we've seen so far. Literally, their parliament has been shut down. Their vice president has coronavirus. 2 days ago, the vice president was in a cabinet meeting publicly with the president. And they're not going to get help from the Americans. They can't control their borders. What's going to happen when this hits all the refugees that are presently sitting in northern Syria that are about to be allowed by the Turkish government to go through their borders into Europe? There are all sorts of political problems that are not yet being factored in as part of this coronavirus as it becomes a global pandemic.